What is up, valid peeps? Cadian here. Last month I made my second Cadiverse video, making what ifs of me being in my favourite franchises. Among those new entries being my first tokusatsu based entry, Ultraman. Today I thought I'd add 3 more tokusatsu entries to the Cadiverse: Super Sentai, Power Rangers, and Kamen Rider. With all that being said, let's get started. Right before we continue though, I just wanted to bring attention to the currently ongoing crises in the world. Among these include Israel's genocide and colonization of Palestine and other surrounding countries, the genocide and slavery in Congo, the war in Yemen, and the war and blackout in Sudan. If you could take your time to donate to these causes, boycott those supporting oppression, or even just spreading awareness about these, it would be much appreciated. I'll put some relevant links down in a pinned comment, and now, back to the video. Starting off with my Super Sentai OC, I decided to have it just be a solo ranger, and give them a Lynx motif, seeing as it hasn't been done in any existing series, so I thought it would make mine more unique. I incorporated someone's suggestion of them also being based on the Lynx constellation, and after commissioning JK5201, I got my Super Sentai OC, Lynxizer. I really like the final design, and I'm particularly proud of the name I came up with for her, being a portmanteau of Lynx and Incisor. Here's some helmetless art, the head being based on my own IRL, and an emblem for her, which I commissioned Third Eye Artistry and Koeg Heifer to make respectively. The Lynx motif isn't the only unique thing about Lynxizer, as her transformation device, the Highlynxer, is actually on the waist, much like many Kamen Riders. While the name was my idea, the design and location was actually JK5201's idea, and it works similarly to the Vision Driver, in that only one person can transform with it, and that transformation is activated by scanning the fingerprint on the reader just above the star, and shouting out the phrase, "Highlynx change," activating the transformation, creating the Lynx constellation on the left screen before turning it into a Lynx face. The transformation jingle is Highlink Hoshi o Claw Nectar, which translates as Highlink, claw next the stars. After transforming, she shouts out her roll call, Seiryoku no Yamaneko Senshi, Lynxizer! The first part translating as the star-powered Wildcat Warrior. Being a Lynx, it should be obvious that Lynxizer's weapon would be a claw, but I thought it'd be a neat idea to mix that with a shield. So I commissioned JK5201 to make that at the same time as the next OC's weapon, which we'll get to in a bit. The first version wasn't exactly what I had in mind, being based on the Max Ryu Soul Changer, so I asked for it to be changed to be based on the Ho-Oh shield. So here it is, the Lynx Slasher. I think it's a neat design. I like how the Lynx face and the constellation lines are incorporated. The red button in the middle is for executing the Wildcat Warrior's finisher, the Highlynx Saylash. One thing I want to note is that while JK5201 did accept changing the design basis, they said to give the information earlier next time, which, yeah, is definitely a lesson to bear in mind for the future. If you're going to commission someone, make sure to have all the details ready beforehand, otherwise irreversible design decisions could be made. Last up for Lynxizer is her mecha, and of course it had to be Lynx themed. I commissioned JK5201 to make this, and with it sharing the same aesthetics as Lynxizer, he made her mecha, Saylynx. Its heavy basis on Geki Tiger makes a lot of sense here, to be honest, and I really like the design. It can transform into its own robot mode too, without combining with any other mecha. So now, Yasei Henkei! Kansei! Lynxeo! Lynxeo's design primarily takes inspiration from Magi Mermaid, being very agile like a lynx and wielding a trident in combat called the Highlynx Tri-Spear. Lynxeo's finisher is the Lynxeo Tri-Spear Crash, a powerful attack with the Tri-Spear. As for its sword on Saylynx, it's stored on the back, the handle becoming Saylynx's tail, JK5201 making it curved to make it feel more like an animal tail rather than a long rod sticking out the back. My Power Rangers OC was actually designed at the same time as Ultra Woman Cadia from the last video, and via similar means. First sketching a design on paper, scanning onto my laptop, and then colouring it in and adding details on paint. before commissioning JK521 to make them and Kadia in a more realistic style. And here is the Exo Strike Ranger. I wanted to go for a completely unique design for my Power Ranger OC, and I definitely achieved that with her design. Like with Kadia and Link Sizer, I also commissioned Third Eye Artistry and Koikefa to make helmetless art and an emblem for her respectively, both of which I like too. Similar to Link Sizer, the Exo Strike Ranger is a ranger that acts alone, though like any ranger, she isn't complete without her gear, so let's get to that now. A morpher is essential to any Power Ranger to allow them to, well, morph. Though initially I didn't have much of a solid idea for Exo Strike's morpher. I first experimented with a couple ultra changes I thought would look cool put together as a morpher, specifically the Mebius Brace and the Tiger Spark, which I was able to get this from. Seeing as I wasn't any expert at colour editing only specific parts, I had a couple friends, Sun Red Star and Tavo, change the colour to how I wanted it to be, and now here is the Exo Strike Ranger's morpher, the Exo Saver. The transformation into the Exo Strike Ranger would involve the user of the Exo Saver pressing the silver button below the circle at the top and holding the device up into the air, all while shouting the phrase, Exo Saver, power up! Once transformed, her roll call is Force of the Uncharted, Exo Strike Ranger. Another couple things a ranger isn't complete without are a weapon, a Zord, and a Megazord. So let's talk about those. I figured I needed an additional motif for these, as otherwise I didn't feel they'd be very interesting. So all three of these have an additional Griffin motif. I commissioned JK521 to make all of them. So starting with the Exo Strike Ranger's weapon, here we have the Exo Blade Bow, a 2-in-1 bow and twin blades. The original design of this was going to be based on the Gashakon Sparrow, but I didn't like how that looked, so I asked for it to be changed to be based on the Sonic Arrow. And I gotta say, I really like how the final result came out, even if the transformation between the two modes did initially confuse me. Each mode has their own finisher, which act as the Exo Strike Ranger's two finishing attacks. With the Exo Blade Bow in bow mode, it's the Exo Strike Ranger Final Arrow Blast, though with it in Twin Blade mode, it's the Exo Strike Ranger Final Twin Slash. As for the Exo Strike Ranger's Zord and Megazord, since she's a ranger that primarily operates in the far reaches of space, I decided to make the Zord a spaceship. So here's the Exo Griffin Strike Ship, primarily based on the Ho-Oh Voyager. Oddly, that works rather well, since that was one of the few Q-Ranger mecha not to be adapted for Power Rangers Cosmic Fury. The Strike Ship can become a Megazord all on its own, the Exo Griffin Megazord. Honestly, this looks really cool, I really like it. The Megazord's finisher is the Exo Griffin Megazord Double Exo Break, a double slash performed with the Megazord's twin blades called the Exo Griffin Edges. Really, my only source of confusion in the design here is where the Megazord's blades were stored on the strike ship. JK521 told me they were under the wings and connect the wings to the cockpit, but even having been a few months since they were made, I'm still a bit unsure to be honest. Anyways, on to Kamen Rider. My last new KDverse entry for the video is my own Kamen Rider OC. Now, this isn't my first time making a Kamen Rider OC. I did once for Build, 01, and Revice a few years back. But much like all my other tokusatsu KDverse OCs, this one can't be linked to any pre-existing series, so this one had to be completely new. I recalled one of my very first Kamen Rider series ideas, the prehistoric creature themed Kamen Ridersaurus, and given my love for prehistoric creatures, I decided my Kamen Rider entry for the KDverse would be based on exactly that. Specifically, a Tyrannosaurus and a Smilodon. Taking the motifs and colours from a one-off sketch of Saurus my friend Emily had made a few years ago, which might look familiar to those of you who watched my end of 2023 Q&A, I commissioned JK521 to make my rider, and here she is, Kamen Rider Ambira. This honestly might be my favourite design out of all of my Tokusatsu KDverse characters. I genuinely love how this came out. She looks awesome. Of course, here's the helmetless art and emblem that I commissioned Third Eye Artistry and Koikefa to make respectively. Now, while a lot of Kamen Riders nowadays use gimmicks to transform, Ambira isn't like them. She doesn't have a gimmick whatsoever. Her driver, called the Paleon driver, is inspired by the Neo Amazon's driver, and is based on both a Tyrannosaurus and a Smilodon. As illustrated in this diagram, JK501 made to show me not only how the driver was based on both animals, but also how it even functioned. With a shout of Henshin and pulling the handle, the fangs extend and the eye color changes, transforming the user into Kamen Rider Ambera. Her jingle is Paleon Eyes, Ancient no Kakuo Crystal Alive, Kamen Rider Ambera. The middle part of which translates as Crystal Alive, the Ancient Past, and her driver's finisher is called the Amber Ruby Crisis. As for Ambera's primary weapon, that would be the Prehistriker, which I yet again commissioned JK501 to make. As shown by this diagram made by JK501, it's a fanged gauntlet with Ambera's motifs. It's largely based on Robot Action Gamer's Gekitotsu Smasher, and it can switch between two different attack modes by turning the orange dial. The Tyrannosaurus mode is slower and heavier but deals more damage, and the Smilodon mode is less powerful though more agile and can hit multiple times at once. The weapon's appearance doesn't change between the two attack styles, and neither does its finisher, triggered by the ruby button on the back, the Amber Ruby Strike. Of course, no Kamen Rider is complete without their very own rider machine. And for Ambera, that's the Machine Paleo, also made by JK501 as a commission. Using the machine builder as a base, and yet again utilizing the dual Tyrannosaurus Smilodon motif as seen in this diagram made by the artist, this is my first Kamen Rider OC to actually have a vehicle of their own, standing out even more from them than before. It's not too common for Kamen Riders to have monster forms, but for Ambera, that was her first time equipping the Paleon driver, the power of which completely overwhelmed her and turned her into the animalistic Romba that I commissioned Mr. Memeral to make. Romba keeps the animal motifs of Ambera, but instead of her amber and ruby gemstone motifs, it has unpolished amber and raw ruby motifs. In all honesty, I think this design came out great. After her first time becoming Romba, she still becomes them unwillingly sometimes, though she can do it willingly as well if she really wants to. From her civilian form, it's done by pulling and pushing the driver's handle 3 times, and from her rider form, it's done by pushing in the driver's handle once, and then pulling and pushing it twice more. Either way, the willing transformation phrase is Sekka, which means petrify, and the willing transformation jingle is Primarize! Ancient no hono kakusei seo yasuike shouju Romba! The latter part of the jingle translates as Awaken Ancient Instincts, the wild crystal beast, Romba. Even with a willing transformation though, Romba herself is still uncontrollable, and she can no longer use her driver finisher, access the Prehistriker, or use the Machine Paleo. So that was my third Katieverse video. I hope you all enjoyed that. A big thank you to JK501 on Fiverr for pretty much all of the main art, Third Eye Artistry on Twitter for the helmetless character art, Sun Redstar on Discord and Tavodraw on Twitter for helping with the Exosaver, Emily on Discord for the original Kamen Rider Saurus design, Mr. Memeral on Twitter for Romba, and Koikefa on DeviantArt for the 3 emblems. Much like the last Katieverse video, a lot of people to thank, but I wouldn't have been able to make this video without any of them, so go check them all out. I'll leave some links to them down in the description. Let me know what you all thought of this video down in the comments below. Like, subscribe and share this video, join my Patreon for just £2 a month to see my videos early, and with all that being said, I'll see all you valid peeps next time.